Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to the Wasteland Wrong Show, Wasteland Talks, my talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. Yes,
Yeah.
branding is everything, and get it mixed up sometimes, but we have some fun, and we're here to analyze another album, and Alex and Jim are back. So if you missed them on the Development Hell podcast this month, well, you still get to see them and hear them talk about some music. And we're here to talk about Brandi Carlile's In These Silent Days, which was Alex's pick. So Alex, what inspired you to pick this album?
So a couple of things. Heard her on 90.5 tonight. And like I was just telling you, man, I had no idea who this person was. I really did not realize who she was and that she'd been around for so long. But I heard her on 90.5 tonight. I listened to that all the time, Brookdale station out here in Jersey. And I heard the song Broken Horses and I went, holy crap, what a voice. And it was just such a badass song. Really just dug the arrangement of it, the way the guitar sounded, the way the piano sounded, the drums, her voice, everything. It was just so cool. And so then I kind of like slowly was like, okay, who is this? And then I pulled it up on Apple Music and listened to other parts of the album, like half of the album, and just really liked the way the acoustic guitar in particular sounded on the record. I just love the way it sounds. And just the vocals too, her vocal, the vocal harmonies, the background vocals, it reminded me of some of the like Harvest by Neil Young, some of the stuff you'd hear from Jim Croce, some of the folk stuff from Tom Petty as he got older. And I just, I really enjoy that sound. It's that earthy sort of sound that comes with folk. And so that's why I wanted to do it. I started to listen to some more of the songs on the albums, like, oh man, like this is it. So when you guys are like, well, what am I going to pick? The other thing is like at the school I'm working out now, they're doing like Nirvana and Metallica, so it's a lot of like, there's those two energies, especially the Metallica. I'm hearing like a lot of Metallica in my ears like every day. So I needed something more chill, more down to earth, I suppose. I love Metallica, but
Do we have Stranger Things to thank for the Metallica that's been playing?
That has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
How many bands are playing Master of Puppets?
Just one, but there have been like, it's coming out of like a different room every day. Like every day. And most people can only play that part. And then there's like two kids who can play the whole thing. So, it's an 8-minute song, so I just, I needed something else, man,
And this is definitely something else. And I was telling Alex before we hopped on and started recording, I'm in the middle of watching the Return of Tanya Tucker documentary, and Brandi Carlile's in it. And I'm like, oh, what a small world. And
crazy.
It's funny because my wife asked me to like, what kind of genre is it? I'm like, I don't even know what to label things anymore today. Just slap alternative on it and just be like, move on with my life.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely got that like folksy kind of feel to it. Like even country's not really country anymore. Because it like country music is very different today than it was when as it appears that Brandi Carlile's friends with some older country stars, and it's like it felt like country music. Doesn't really feel like country music today.
There's definitely I'm hearing elements of old country.
Yeah.
What's the track that reminds me of like Jim Croce, old country the most? This Time Tomorrow, the third track, very laid back, very soft, double vocal, acoustic guitar, like old country. But on Apple Music, she's listed as singer-songwriter. And so I'm sure that's partially her decision or their decision as a band. You know, are we going to call it alternative folk? Are we going to call it folk? She's decided to just have this one be singer-songwriter, which I think that makes sense.
It does make sense. I wrote down a variety of American style songwriting. Like you could call this Americana if you wanted to, right? Piano, guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. But I heard at different points in the record, the first song made me think of Lady Gaga. Like right away. But then I got some shades of Adele later on in the album too. And like, I wouldn't say Adele relies a lot on American music. So maybe singer-songwriter is the most telling tag if you need to put one on this album. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, I didn't know what to expect when I started playing it. And I'm like, oh, I know this song. Oh, wait a minute. I know this song too. Wait a minute. And I just started realizing, like, I've heard like the first 4 songs somewhere at least before. And like, I definitely have heard You and Me on the Rock, like definitely have heard that either on the radio or somewhere. And I don't remember where, but I definitely have heard it before. And the first time, because I probably listened to this about 3 or 4 times since our assignment. And the first time listening to it, I'm like, oh, I recognize a couple of these songs and listened through. And then there was 2 of them that were like, oh, I'm like, I like that. And yes, Alex got the reference that I made there. Mama Werewolf, and it's not just because I am one. But like, I really enjoyed that song, and that one stuck out to me. And then Sinners, Saints, and Fools was probably one of the most different sounding songs on the album. And there's even some like heavy strings going on there, and the song's a little bit heavier than some of the other stuff on the album. Like, it
has like a metal ending on that track.
Yeah, and I'm like, I dig this. She went hard on this one. One extra little funny thing was, because when the music first started playing and she started singing, I'm like, this voice sounds familiar. And honestly, I thought she was the one who wound up dubbing in, because in the movie The Greatest Showman, Rebecca Ferguson doesn't sing for herself. There's an actual singer that dubs over her voice. And for a second, I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like her. I wonder if it was her. It was not her. But she has a very strong voice. And I was really impressed when I started listening to the album. Like, dang, she can sing. She
really well. Sing. And I love some of her, but I think that's the thing that I knew we were going to talk about. Like, she can do what Adele does, right? Like, I don't know if she does it as well as Adele does it.
Because she roll in the deep.
I don't know if anybody can do that quite that well, but I think some of my favorite songs end up being the more subtle, laid back ones. I think where she's more. It's almost like she's talking to you, a little bit more. And I think you could do that with folk, something. That's why I always end up going back to folk inspired stuff, is because there's something really grounded and earthy and real about it, so there's something, the word authentic, it had, there's something very authentic about it. But the songs, like the first track, actually, the Adele Gaga sounding, it's actually one of my for me, it's like one of my least favorite tracks. Not to I guess I start to get a little analytical when we do these things, but I'm like, but I love Life on the Rock. I'm like, if I was in the room, I'd be like, that's your opener. Like, that's your first track, but they made a video for the first song. What's the name of the first song? Right on Time. They made a video for that. Like, that was like one of their singles.
Maybe because that song is really about the silent days. So she must have had a real emotional connection to that through line. Like I don't know if she and her partner were struggling at all, like when she wrote these songs, but like that track, Right on Time. Number 5,
Letter to the Past.
Letter to the Past is a little bit, makes me uncomfortable. And then 7, When You're Wrong.
Oh, I love the lyrics in that song.
Me too.
Yeah.
And we can, we can get there. But maybe if you open the track with Life on the Rock, the rest of the album doesn't really follow through with as cheery a tone as that song does. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's like maybe it's a different album. And I think that's the one thing when I'm looking at this album is like, it does take you into like the different, like it dives you into like the emotional place, right? One of the piano ballads. And then it brings you up with some like optimistic, positive stuff. And then it tries to like really put you on the roller coaster with a couple of songs, So it's like, it works for me for the most part. Like, I think it's wonderful. I think there's some wonderful stuff, but then there's a couple places where I'm like, I don't know if I would have gone there, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, when I say variety, I could picture this album being played beginning to end in a big arena, like a sold out arena, like, what was the movie you just mentioned, Shane? Star is Born? When a Star is Born?
Did I mention A Star is Born?
He mentioned it to me before you came on the call.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
No, that wasn't the one. That's the Gaga movie, right?
Yeah.
Hold on, my computer's trying to update.
Do you mean the documentary that I brought up?
No, like the Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga,
the Star is
songs from that movie that like you could fill an arena with. I think there's variety on here between the piano ballads and the rockers that you could put this in an arena, and I think it would hold up
for sure. Yeah.
A bunch of people with cowboy hats swaying back and forth. But yeah, some of the music does really sound like that kind of music that you got in A Star is Born, because
right.
I've appreciated stripped away Lady Gaga, because like, not gonna lie, I do really enjoy her music, and obviously she was a very specific kind of act for a while, with some very unique choices in attire, including meats. But like, I appreciate when she like stripped it all away, and it felt like it started with when she started doing those like Tony Bennett albums, and it's just like, oh, well, she can sing, so like if you strip this all away, and then it was really A Star is Born where it just felt like she really fit in with that like very like grass-rooted like American sounding like country music, and like I could definitely hear those kind of vibes in a lot of the songs on here, and like I can imagine like everybody just swaying along and listening to some of these songs in like an arena.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure. Did you guys have a favorite? Is Broken Horses still a favorite for you, Alex?
I think it's the standout. I think it's the one that like cracks open the ceiling. I mean, it's the one that kind of makes you have to pay attention to her and what she's doing. I don't know if I have a favorite. I have to say Mama Werewolf is such a good song. That is such a good song. I think what I ended up walking away with was that I found lyrics on like all the songs that I really, really like. But I think that those two are the ones I'm going to run to. Those two are going to be my jam. Broken Horses and Mama Werewolf are probably the ones. But there are just lyrics that I'll probably throw out there just because I'm like, I think I really do like letter to the past. And when you're wrong, I think more for the lyrics. I think the lyrics in those songs really speak to me. And then throwing good after bad as a closer, like the lyrics in that one too. It's like, shit, she wrote this about, I'm supposed to write this song. I'm supposed to write this song. It makes you, it's making me think of people, so, and yeah, no, those are some powerful lyrics there. But I think if I had to pick my jam, I'm going to say Mama Werewolf.
Cool. Should we start with that one, or should we start with Broken Horses?
Well, I was going to say I really like the imagery in Mama Werewolf. Okay. And like it is very literal. Like it's legitimately talking about werewolves and sharp teeth and howling at the moon and stuff like that. Not quite like cheesy like Bark at the Moon, like Ozzy Osbourne kind of thing, but like it's really interesting because like they're like when I awake and I'm reborn, my body aches and my soul is torn. I search the void for any clue, and I feel ashamed for what I put you through. It's just like there's some good stuff there, and some lyrics that really stood out to me, along with all of the werewolf imagery and stuff like that went along in the song.
Yeah.
I thought that Mama Werewolf and Stay Gentle sounded like tracks that you'd sing to your kids. So the way I heard the song is that like she's saying she might be a little too fierce sometimes. Like she's still a human being. She's flawed. Like she might express her love in overly fierce ways, and she might fail in certain ways. But she needs her kids. She relies on them at least to provide that silver bullet as much as they need her. I don't know if you guys were coming from the same place, but that's kind of what I thought that song was about.
More of a place of like motherhood, caring for a child. I didn't think about that. Are you saying she's the werewolf?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Like obviously,
how did you listen to it initially?
I know, even just looking at the lyrics, there's obviously like her singing this song and showing some kind of regret for how she's acting, for how she's treating. And it's like, if my good intentions go running wild, if I cause you pain, my own sweet child, won't you promise me you'll be the one, my silver bullet in the gun? And obviously, if you're looking more literally talking about her child, I guess thinking about it in that way specifically, because like the lyrics that I read earlier, like it ends with that showing of remorse and being ashamed of like what I've put you through. And obviously it's showing like I have this darker edge to me and I apologize for how that winds up affecting you. And I feel like it's pretty poignant with how it plays out in the song.
Yeah, and I think it's like sometimes when you're super stressed or you're super tired, you kind of black out. You say things you don't mean, you might lose your temper. That first lyric you read, Shane, about like waking up in the morning, I feel like that's kind of where that's coming from. Like, oh, what did I say?
Yep.
what did I do? Like, who do I need to apologize to? What kind of fires do I need to put out? Like,
it's good.
Yeah. So I did. Not that I take the title literally, but I thought it was about being a mother, and that maybe I wouldn't have thought this was to a child unless I'd heard the whole album. And Stay Gentle to me was like also kind of a passing of wisdom to a younger person, probably a child. So yeah, that's kind of how I heard it. It's like an apology, you know?
Yeah. I gotta admit, man, I thought it was about like what did I think? What did I think it was about?
It's about werewolves.
It's about werewolves, man.
Mother werewolves.
I think my reaction, I in my mind, all the times I listened to it, I guess I thought it was about basically, I almost thought it was about like she was like in love with a guy, but she hated his mom, and she was saying like, your mom's like,
your mom looks like a werewolf. She needs a shave.
It's like a Grendel reference from Beowulf.
No, I guess it was like, your mom's like, we got to get away from your mom so that we could be together. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. So like, this is gonna seem like something out of left field, but stick with me. So like, I watched this whole entire docuseries on Shudder about It's Queer for Fear, and basically it's a whole documentary about like the deep-seated thematic links between like queer culture and horror films. And werewolf mythology and like the whole thing where it's just like, you have something inside you that you're like hiding away from people because of the persecution that you're going to get from people, and when it lets out and you're your full self, people see you as a monster. And I feel like these kinds of like monster allegories can be so powerful, and like obviously feeling here, it's like us trying to hold back our least desirable traits and feelings and reactions to things. And obviously this song's kind of channeling that idea of lashing that out. And it's that one line of like, for what I did, I am ashamed of what I put you through. It's kind of like the whole thing where it's just like, I have no experience with this, but I have seen it. Somebody getting really drunk the night before and doing some stuff that they regretted, and coming back and waking up the next morning being like, oh crap, what did I do last night? And then having to be like, well, I did some terrible things to people I care about, and following up with them and stuff like that. But I like the imagery and the metaphor for being able to, that idea of becoming a werewolf, of really letting out some of the things that are deep inside you that maybe aren't the most well accepted, or maybe the best things about you. And it kind of embodies itself in this darker presence. And it feels like the Brandi Carlile as this, I guess, character singing this song really is trying to process those kinds of choices and those not necessarily choices, those kinds of reactions that you feel that regret for, and trying to make up to the people that you hurt through it.
Wow.
I think it's really interesting, Shane, that you brought up being persecuted for, sexuality, for whatever, because I noticed a religious thread popping up like several times in this album. Like she mentions Babylon a couple times. I wasn't really sure what that was about. Letter to the Past is about faith and kind of how it can be, how it can make you kind of brittle. That's what I took away from that one. And then Sinners, Saints, and Fools, of course, is probably the most obviously religious reference here. So I wrote in my notes that, like, I wondered if she'd been run out of a congregation, or if she'd had some kind of traumatic experience with some kind of a faith congregation or a community. So I thought it was interesting that you brought that up too, because I thought I was kind of off base with that.
And even in like Mama Werewolf, like talking about praying to God, that getting through like these darker times and stuff like that, and trying to find that light. And obviously, you're right, Jim, it's very explicit with Sinners, Saints, and Fools. And like the opening part is like, where the winds of change were blowing, there lived a God-fearing man. He was turning through his Bible when he came up with a plan. He painted up a sign and held it high above his head, waved it proudly in the air, and this is what it read. So like, even like taking on and really diving deep into your beliefs and stuff like that, and acting through it. And, going through the song, trying to figure out who are the saints, sinners, and fools.
Yeah, I kind of I kind of thought Mama Werewolf was to the kids. I thought it was kind of a cute song, but the more we talk about it, the deeper it seems to get here for me. Um, so Mama Werewolf and Stay Gentle, I thought were to kids. And then I kind of heard Letter to the Past and the last track, Good After Bad, as being to a partner. But I kind of wanted to talk about, well, I definitely want to talk about the last track because I don't understand what that phrase means. But I also want to talk about the Broken Horses lyrics because I don't think I understand those either. If you guys are willing to humor me.
Sure. What is the last track?
It's called Throwing Good After Bad. Yeah.
I think you are right, Jim, about her. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's gay, right?
I know she's married to a woman.
Okay.
I know they have 2 kids.
Have kids.
And I know that her partner carried both of the kids.
Wow.
I didn't read that interview. I just kind of read the tagline. Apparently that was kind of like she wanted to carry one of the kids, and however it worked out, she fell into the Ellen role, the father role, if you will,
right,
and her partner carried both the children. So yeah, interesting. I don't know, interesting
Well, I
sidebar.
remember when we were having drinks after the diner on Sunday, and you had mentioned, but I don't think you knew at the time. You thought that she had been writing to a woman. It's something about the way the lyrics were.
Something about, so the only song that I'd heard more than just once at that time was track 2, Life on the Rock.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was about that album. I don't know if it was the Lucius Fox. Yeah. I don't know what it was about the record, but I felt like that was for a woman.
Yeah. When you read the lyrics, you out in your garden, me out on my walk, or me in my garden, you out on your walk. Something about that. Yeah. No, I
don't know, but I love that song. That was the first song I heard off this record. Kind of stopped me in my tracks. I think I Shazammed it, or might have been on the radio, but I definitely stopped to find out what that song was, because it's just so light and cheery. Like you just don't hear a lot of songs that are that sweet. It really is a sweet love song.
And like I'm looking at the lyrics for like the last song, Throwing Good After Bad, and people get addicted to the rush, the chase, the new, just hoping that that chaos will lead to something like this. I'll get over you, but you won't be whole until you do. You won't find what you had throwing good after bad. And like I'm kind of getting like this sense of like throwing good after bad seems to be like, in like a relationship where you're just like, we have like this and that, and I love it about that, but I have to put up with all of this. And it's like it kind of gives me that vibe of like, you have all these problems, and it'd be a lot easier to make this kind of relationship work if like those good things didn't have to come after you dealing with a bunch of bad stuff first to make you kind of appreciate those things. And obviously, like alluding to that, it's like you won't find what you had throwing good after bad. It's like you're not going to find like a good thing in a relationship like that. After a while, that nice shine of the good after putting up with a bunch of crap isn't going to be as nice anymore. And you're just going to probably be focusing on like the bad parts of things.
The shimmering fad. I think that's a pretty good read, Shane. Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense, actually, now that I have the lyrics in front of me. I was just looking at I guess I was only trying to read the chorus, and you doesn't really make sense unless you take the whole of the lyrical song into account. I was looking at "You've Got a Beautiful Mind" and "The Soul of a Coyote," hunger driving you mad, throwing good after bad. Yeah, so the hunger is like, even though you're in a committed relationship, there's always that hunger that's got you looking for something
else.
Your movie dancers, you know, the shimmering fads, something that's seductive, I guess, is, you know. But Brandi Carlile seems to accept that, right? She seems to accept that in whoever she's writing this song to, right? She's not saying "F you, I'm gone." She's like, this is the real thing. I wish you wouldn't take it for granted first and then appreciate it after, right? Is that kind of where this is going?
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm looking at some of the, like, even just like the first lyrics after the ooh ooh ooh. I love, side note, I love when you look up lyrics and they have like that kind of stuff. It's just like, I know you're leaving me and I know I'm not your home. You want a movie dancer, you want blood from a stone, but I'm on to you and you will pour your heart into any shimmering fad, throwing good after bad. And it's like, I think it's obviously
those lyrics cut a little bit. They hurt a little bit. Yeah,
because basically whoever's like the person singing these, like saying these words, is obviously, I think, gotten to the point where they're ready to let this person go. And just kind of pointing out to them, it's just like, yeah, you could keep chasing after all these things, but it's not going to give you what you need. And it's like, I'm what you need, but it seems like you keep screwing it up and not appreciating it. And like, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting out of that.
Sure.
At least from like the opening there.
Yeah. I think that holds. The lying wind that calls your name. Yeah, it's like a seductive, you know, especially if I don't know if they're living out in Hollywood. I definitely got a Laurel Canyon vibe from this record. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah.
But like, there's always got to be some sexy thing that's coming along, like
some
week after
sexy
week
thing
in
that
Hollywood,
lives next door.
Maybe, I don't know.
Sure. Well, I also kind of wonder, I mean, do we know, is she still with her wife? Are they still married?
As far as I know. Yeah, as far as I know.
Because I wonder if she does all the lyrics, or I mean, she could have written this about somebody else from a while back, but you know, I know the twins, the Hansworth twins that are in the band, play guitar and bass with her. I wonder if they write any of the lyrics. I would imagine she writes all of them, but I wonder if they had anything to do with the lyrics. You know, that's a whole other story.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember listening to Jason Isbell on Southeastern. I don't know if I've made you guys listen to this record or not, but there are some really heavy songs on the album, which I mean, he's got his share of demons too, but like, you never know. My point is, when a songwriter's stepping into somebody's shoes that he talked to one night in a bar, he listened to their story and he was like, damn, I'm going to go write a song about that. You know?
Yeah.
Who knows if Brandi Carlile's writing this from a personal place, or just kind of stepping into her songwriter shoes, you know?
Or you're in a hardware store and you hear a blue collar worker saying a whole bunch of stuff about people on MTV. And then you just write a whole entire song about it.
Good callback, Shane.
See, we've got
colored TVs.
I also know one thing that I've seen, you know, I know that Anthony Kiedis have done it. I've done it, you know, in songs that I've written where it'll sound like I'm telling somebody else they need to do something, from really telling myself, you know, the duality, this sort of duality thing you could do with lyrics where you're saying it to somebody else, but you're also saying it to yourself at the same time. So, I also wonder about, it's a wonderful thing you could do with songs. But either way, not knowing or understanding a lot of the intention behind some of these songs. Her imagery is just, I think that was another reason why I wanted to do this, is the imagery. What you were talking about, blood from the stone, like that is just, there's so much to that. It's just such a, there could be so much there. It's so colorful and beautiful the way she puts the lyrics together.
I wanted to say like a side note, because like I love these episodes that I do with the two of you, because I tend to not listen to lyrics as closely as listen to like the actual music in a song. And like when we sit here looking through these lyrics, I'm like, dang, I like this a lot more now.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like
totally. It
gives a whole other layer of appreciation for it.
I'm the same way, believe it or not. I'm listening for, is it resonating with me emotionally? Not the lyrics, just the way it sounds. And then, but you don't realize until you look at like how important the phrases are, and how it kind of like brings that out of you.
Because there's a lot of poetry here. In these lyrics and stuff like that. And
totally. Yeah.
Like, I'm really impressed by this album. I'm glad you picked it, Alex, because like obviously I mentioned like I heard these songs before. I had no idea who the hell Brandi Carlile was, though. I've heard these songs before, some of these songs before, and I wound up liking a whole bunch of these to actually like put on my Spotify because I want to listen to them again.
Hell yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, it's just some really, it's got a lot of soul. It has a whole lot of soul, and sadness, but also there's an optimism and there's a faith behind it. Seems to be a sort of faith behind it all. There's this strength sort of thing. Oh man, I could be wrong. There was a lyric in there? I didn't friggin' paste it on my document here. There was some lyric about apathy in here I thought was really freaking good. I wish I could remember what song it was from.
I would look to Letter to the. Okay, so I'll look at Letter to the Past first. You guys go elsewhere. How about
all
that?
Right, you guys
split up and search for clues.
I think you're right. But there was just a really good lyric about apathy. But it was going to my point about there being the strength there, and having, but also a sort of empathy that kind of came along with it. Stone wall in a world full of rubber bands, you're a pillar of belief still fighting your shaking hands. Folks are going to lean on you and leave when the cracks appear. I just love that whole hook.
Those lyrics did stick with me too, and I'm not one to listen for lyrics first, but those did. Even the first time, I remembered that line listening to it a second time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I forget where the line about apathy came in, but it could have been someone else too.
Well, When You're Wrong also talks about leaning on someone.
That's a good one too. I mean, just the
that would
idea
be my deep track. I like that one a lot.
Strong enough to love you when you're wrong is
When You're Wrong. Yeah,
that's.
I mean, the apathy is implied. I don't see the word here, but there's apathy implied here.
All right, I screwed up. Must have been listening to somebody else.
No, I'm sure it's here. It's just on a different track.
Yeah, but it might be somewhere in there, but it's definitely, I don't know, just the theme of strength despite like the things that she's dealt with, and now there's all this wisdom that she has, going back to like Mama Werewolf. You got this. I didn't know she was a mom until you guys just told me. So now there's that whole element to it for me, so.
And I'm not a parent, at least not yet. And I can imagine one of the challenges is like when you're on your own, it's like you live with like the good and the bad of yourself, and you hopefully understand the good and bad of yourself, and you figure out like how that affects you and balancing those things. And I feel like it would probably become much more hyper realized and being like, I don't want to show these things in front of my kids. And like having that regret of showing some of that stuff in front of your children and letting that werewolf out and feeling ashamed of like what you put your own kids through by showing some of those kinds of things. And I feel like that definitely fits in with the whole idea of like the werewolf imagery and that is like a metaphor. But like I can imagine, because it's like, you know I could get a little temperamental sometimes, and you don't want to do that with your kids. Sometimes I do that with my cats, because one of them almost knocked my laptop off of a table, and I'm like, yes. I got exhausted chasing a cat around it for 25 minutes at 11 o'clock at night the other night. Still don't catch a cat. It's too quick for me. But like, some like thinking about those kinds of like reinforcing those like ideas in that song, I think it's interesting to think about all the different aspects of yourself that you bring into like your art. Because like we have so many different facets of ourselves, like thinking about yourself as, thinking of yourself as a partner, thinking of yourself as a parent, thinking of yourself as an employee or an artist. And, you're one person, but you have all these different aspects of you. And you could definitely tell that she's really putting her full self on display here with like the different songs and what they're focusing on and what they're representing to her. You could tell this feels like a very personal album. And I think that goes along with Alex, you talking about there's a lot of soul here. I think she really injects a lot of soul into it.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I forget what song it was, but the kingdom of heaven belongs to a boy while his worry belongs to a man. That was another one that like I think went along with what I was saying. Like it just, that was a really good line. While his worry belongs to a man.
And just to reinforce, Jim, there definitely is a lot of religious imagery and lyrics in this album.
Yeah, thank you.
Which also doesn't really surprise me, because like, especially because like knowing that she has a lot of like country roots. Generally, a lot of country music or country musicians are very God-fearing people, and it's very like that grassroots, dig in, like salt of the earth kind of people. That's just like love my family, fear God. I'm gonna be okay.
Where is she? Is she from Virginia or one of the Carolinas? I
do not know. To be honest, I did not look up much about her.
She's from Ravensdale, Washington.
Washington, there you go. West Coast.
She's West Coast country.
She's
Sinners, Saints, and Fools. I feel like it's kind of condemning the Toby Keith by the book. Well, maybe not Toby Keith, because Toby Keith's kind of a rebel too, right? He kind of makes it up as he goes along. Anybody who's going to be like, this is what the Bible says. This is what the Bible says, and this is the way you get to heaven, and this is a good person, and that's a bad person. Yeah. She's like, you look in a mirror. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's that kind of. I guess it is that like West Coast kind of like I'm questioning, but it's still important to me, kind of thing, and. Yeah, she comes from a rural town in southeast of Seattle.
Yeah, that's a lot of school. That's a lot of people's experience with religion. So many people, some people just try to shrug it off entirely and be atheists, which I get. I get it. Then some people like they have some sort of faith, but they've just shrugged off the religious aspect of it. They shrugged off the ceremony, the dogma, if you will, but the faith and the wisdom that was in the scriptures that came along with the stories are still there. There's still a guide, and of course, it's going to find its way. If you're an artist, it always finds its way into the poetry.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize, like, on the rock, that's a religious reference right there, because Jesus told Peter he was going to build his church upon this rock, right? So she's saying, I'm gonna build a life with you, build a family with you, right here on this rock.
Dwayne Johnson.
That was the first thing I thought of when I heard the chorus for the first time, and I dismissed it because, like, can't assume that everybody else is seeing things through a religious lens like you do. But yeah, she definitely has kept the some of the metaphors and the language. Like I said, Babylon. It's definitely still here.
What is Babylon?
It's Old Testament.
I might sound stupid. What is Babylon a reference to? I should know that, but I don't.
So from what I remember, Babylon was kind of a center of, what's the word? The word is hedonistic. It was kind of a hedonistic.
Babylon became a symbol for the stereotypical enemies of God and his people.
Oh, Vegas.
Enemies of God. Yes, very much.
Well, and also Damien Chazelle's new film Babylon, which is about the excess of 1920s Hollywood and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which, like, the whole entire trailer just seems like a crazy drug and alcohol trip.
Which, again, this is from the perspective of the people who wrote down those Old Testament scriptures. So let's to be fair to the Babylonians in the room.
Yeah, we do not mean to offend any Babylonians. We apologize.
Sorry, Carl. Sorry.
Carl of Babylon. Which is interesting because when we were talking about some, like, other artists we recognize and stuff like that, apparently she did album cover stories, and she actually did cover Adele.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. Hiding My Heart. She also covered
covers. Is it all covers?
All covers. She covered Pearl Jam, Chris Christopherson, Dolly Parton, and a whole bunch of other people. So, like, she obviously has that, like, old school country love there with, like, Chris Christopherson and Dolly Parton. Pearl Jam. She is from Washington, home of the grunge.
Right. Yeah.
So
there is some 90s alternative in here, though, for sure. I see she covered some Indigo Girls on that album too.
Yeah, I don't know who, like, any of the rest of these people are, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you.
I think Joni Mitchell, if I had to say, like, this sounds like one person, it would be more Joni Mitchell than anything else in my ears.
Really? Like just
not a bad thing at all.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the like maybe the melodic sense of it. Definitely the second track on the rock.
Yes.
I don't know of many artists that can get that much sunshine into a melody. Like Joni Mitchell is one of those very few, you know?
Is that song she does, Put Up a Parking Lot?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, oh my God. You know what? I was sitting and listening to that, You and Me on the Rock, thinking, like, this sounds like another song. And it kind of does sound like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, now that you mentioned it. Yeah.
What is that song called?
Let's look it up. Let's look it up.
Pave Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot. I think it's called Parking Lot.
I wonder how it would sound. Big Yellow Taxi.
Oh, Big Yellow Taxi.
Is that the name of it?
And the first time I heard that song, it was Counting Crows covering Joni Mitchell, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
We're talking about covers.
You guys hear that?
Yep.
Pave paradise, put up a parking lot. with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?
Not that their singing style is similar,
but just the.
I think Brandi Carlile's song sounds more like the cover of that song.
Right. So if you put now.
Exactly.
Holy God, that's crazy. Yeah.
but I'm still bopping.
They build wooden houses on frozen.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good. You know, no,
There are only so many chords and notes that you can play. Just ask AC/DC.
Exactly.
There's only so many blues chords that you can throw out there.
That's right. All right, guys, I got 10 minutes left. They're going to kick me out of the library. You can finish, but if I disappear, that's where I went.
I would be so entertaining to watch them kick you out. Like, I'm just imagining, like,
And we're gonna get it live.
I'm holding up the computer. Just
I'm imagining like
put me out.
Mrs. Fine from Aldridge Elementary School.
Yeah, there goes. Hey, I thought this was a fruitful conversation. I definitely have a lot more appreciation for this album and Brandi Carlile's music. And now I might go listen to some of her other music and also go finish this documentary with her in it. So there you go.
I gotta stop wearing tight jeans on these podcasts.
I have athletic shorts on. I'm nice and comfortable right now.
I don't have time. I don't have time to change in the shorts.
And I'm Ron Burgundy.
And I'm Ron Burgundy. And stay classy, San Diego. Who put a question mark on the teleprompter? You know anything you put on there, Ron's going to read. Foreshadowing. Go F yourself, San Diego.
Good show.
But this was a lot of fun. And to give everybody a heads up on what we're going to do next month. It's a little bit heavier than what we did this month. My pick is Device, which is the side project of David Draymond from Disturbed. After their album Asylum, he decided, I'm going to do another project. And it's a little bit more industrial, but still sounds like Disturbed because it's still David Draymond. But it's a lot of interesting collaborations, and I'm interested to hear what both of you think of it, because I've listened to this plenty since it came out back in, I think, 2012 or 13 or somewhere around there. But Alex and Jim, thank you as always for coming on and talking music and movies and all kinds of stuff.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, man. I always love it.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.